from Brisbane, 7 News with Katrina Blowers.
Good afternoon. Our top stories on 7. A man shot and killed by police in a drug operation while officers opened fire. Things turn ugly after a Broncos fan day, the video showing 2 stars in a violent brawl. Queensland failing children in the classroom, the damning report on the way they're taught to read. And the Chiefs win the Super Bowl in an overtime thriller as Taylor Swift joins the celebrations with her boyfriend. Good afternoon. Police have shot and killed a man at a motel south of Webcke. It's understood a targeted drug operation was taking place when the man threatened officers. Michaela Fanto reports.
Police were conducting a targeted drug operation looking for a wanted man this morning. It led them to the Country View Motel in Ilbilby, about 70 kilometres south of Webcke. The 39-year-old was wanted on a range of matters. Police say he was in his car as officers approached, and that's when he threatened them.
During the arrest process, the male has produced a firearm, or it'll be alleged the male's produced a firearm. During the process, officers have subsequently discharged their firearms, striking the male. The male was wanted on a number of matters, so police have attended to undertake those investigations in relation to those matters. Police
tried to resuscitate the man, but he died at the scene. The Ethical Standards Command will investigate and a report will be prepared for the coroner.
The Premier has announced a series of measures to tackle the state's youth crime crisis. We'll go to Laura Dimmick, who's at State Parliament. And Laura, these initiatives aren't so new.
No, Katrina, they include expanding some laws which are already in place and bringing forward some legislation which the government announced last year. Now, this follows a briefing by the Police Commissioner Katrina of Cabinet about what could be done to address youth crime. The Police Commissioner said she had a lengthy and candid discussion with our state leaders this morning. What they have agreed on is to bring forward laws banning the sale of knives and other weapons to minors, requiring retailers to lock these items away as well as ask for ID from customers. Retailers are being encouraged to do that from now with a deadline set to follow. The Premier has also committed to an expansion of wanding powers under Jack's Law, allowing police to search young people for a weapon, as well as increasing the penalty for carrying a knife in public.
We have extraordinary success at diverting children away from the system. But there is a challenging cohort and the violence has been escalating.
The last item on the list is to investigate expanding the use of GPS trackers on young offenders. The Police Commissioner said a huge amount of police resources is spent keeping track of offenders on bail, and the use of electronic monitoring could free up officer time. How that expansion would work, well, the Premier doesn't have that detail yet. He says he doesn't want to rush it. He wants to take his time and do it right. Katrina?
Laura Dimmick there at Parliament. The Albanese government is under fire as new details emerge on the number of criminals released from immigration detention by the High Court last year. Documents reveal the government hasn't applied for a single preventative detention order. Our political reporter Isabel Mullen has more from Canberra.
Well, these are the documents that Liberal Senator James Patterson wanted to make public. They reveal at least 149 detainees were released into the community following the controversial High Court decision last year, which found keeping people in indefinite immigration detention is illegal. Among the cohort were 7 murderers and 37 sex offenders. 72 were guilty of assault. 24 have now reoffended since being released into the community, 6 breaching their visa conditions. Mr Patterson says the most troubling finding is that the government hasn't applied for a single preventative detention order to re-detain any of this cohort.
This is the document that the government didn't want the public to see. What was the point of rushing that legislation through before Christmas and still to this day have not made a single application to a court to have any of these high-risk offenders re-detained and taken off to the streets?
36 detainees detainees released were not required to wear ankle bracelets, the Immigration Minister refusing to answer how many have reoffended.
The Minister has determined that 36 not be required to wear ankle bracelets. How many of these individuals have committed an offence?
I thank the Shadow Minister for his question, but I've already answered this question. I've already answered the question.
The documents also reveal 60 of the released detainees live in New South Wales, 40 in Victoria and 20 in both Queensland and Western Australia.
To some breaking news now, and 2 Brisbane Broncos stars have been caught on camera in an ugly brawl. Video posted to social media appears to show Adam Reynolds and Pat Carrigan in a violent scuffle following a recent Fan Day event.
Adam! Cat! Stop!
We'll have more on this story tonight in the news at 6. Supermarket giant Coles reportedly wants its suppliers to cut their prices so it can pass the savings on to consumers. As Paul Caddick explains, it comes as 3 separate inquiries begin into the cost of groceries.
Good afternoon. The supermarket giant has reportedly been telling some suppliers it could be asking for price cuts on some products of up to 14% in preparation for future discounting campaigns, with Coles pointing to improved inflation figures and lower freight costs. Suppliers, though, are expected to push back, with wage and power costs still rising. Coles wouldn't comment on specific supplier negotiations, that it was, quote, always looking to lower the cost of groceries. But it comes as the major supermarkets are facing major scrutiny over their pricing and profits. Already this year we've had the price gouging report, the ACCC is now investigating, and soon a Senate inquiry will begin its hearings.
It's about time that the supermarket giants were put under public scrutiny. They'll get a chance to come in and try to justify their prices. I think they're really going to struggle to do that.
While some Coles customers got a discount with a difference in Melbourne today after online promotions boss Adrian Portelli turned up to hand out $200 vouchers to what soon became a big queue of people.
Big thank you to everyone as well to come out in the heat, and hope this helps out.
Aiming to hand out $50,000 worth, it ended up being $80,000 to more than 500 people.
Barnaby Joyce is blaming the mixing of a prescription drug with alcohol for the incident that left him lying on a Canberra footpath. Speaking for the first time since the video went public, the former Deputy PM says he is not looking for sympathy.
I'm on a prescription drug, and they say certain things may happen to you if you drink, and they were absolutely 100% right. They did. I made a big mistake. There's no excuse for it. There's a reason. And, this a very eventful walk home, wasn't it?
Mr. Joyce was sitting on a plan to making a phone call when he fell. It was heartbreak for Australia's Mitch Wishnowsky, but pure joy for the Kansas City Chiefs and Taylor Swift in a Super Bowl classic. Our US correspondent Marley Hogan was inside the stadium as the Chiefs claimed a thrilling victory.
It is the magic moment that the players have dreamed of. Back-to-back titles in a Super Bowl game that will go down in history.
Mahomes flings it. It's there! Hartman! Jackpot! Kansas City!
Man, I feel amazing. They can't take this away from us. This is something they can't take away.
Back-to-back titles?
Hey, man, yeah, this is my first one. But I'm just glad to be a part of a group like this, you know. We have amazing leaders. We got Pat, Chris, Trav, Sneed, Duff. We got a hell of a leaders, man.
Amazing. Back-to-back, can't even describe it. I'm having a hard time keeping tears back right now.
I feel great, man. You know, same play I scored on last year, won us the game. You know what I'm saying? We needed everybody tonight, and that's what happened.
How are you going to celebrate?
I don't know if it's good for TV, but it's going to be a long night.
But it was so much more than just a football game. Usher performed the halftime show.
Just when I thought I said all I could say, my chick on the side said she got one on the way. So my confession.
And the much anticipated arrival of a superstar did come true. Taylor Swift was here at the Super Bowl game to watch her partner Travis Kelce become a champion.
Viva Las Vegas! Viva! Viva Las Vegas!
Unfortunately, it wasn't to be for the 49ers, and the Australian punter Mitch Wishnowsky tonight belongs to the Kansas City Chiefs.
And closer to home, hundreds of Super Bowl superfans have packed venues across Brisbane to watch the action. The early kickoff didn't stop crowds from getting stuck into wings, burgers and beer. Every touchdown explosive at the Felons Bar and
We've got
Pal.
a T-shirt cannon. We're giving away like Felons T-shirts, and there's some really awesome fun Super Bowl specials.
No matter which team they backed, it looked like a pretty good way to spend a Monday. And that's especially the case given there's been some rain around. Tony, what is the latest on these showers?
Katrina, they've only been sporadic and short-lived for the most part, but they're definitely packing a punch if you do get a cell move overhead. At the moment, we have a spattering of these very small and fast-moving showers around the Bayside, around Brisbane, up towards, the Bribie Island area as well. The Gold and Sunshine Coasts have cleared up for now. Rain totals have been light, most spots picking up less than 5 millimetres in the past day. The extra cloud helped keep temperatures down a little bit, all after a slightly cooler night through those inland parts too. Greenbank, Ipswich, Canunga all dropping down to 19 degrees. It was a much warmer night on the Gold Coast though, staying up around 25, and our warmer spots today crept up to 30. Now, turning our attention to the tropics, where a low is expected to start spinning up in the Gulf of Carpentaria around Thursday and Friday. It could potentially become a tropical cyclone, but either way, we're looking at more rain for those Gulf areas already affected by ex-cyclone Kirrily. It's just seeming like it never ends. Katrina, I'll be back soon with tomorrow's forecast.
Gotta love a Queensland summer. Thank you. Well, the report card is in on Queensland students' literacy performance, and it doesn't make for good reading. Those full details next. The latest on the King's condition, his rare public outing. And a giant swan and 2 huge chickens hit the slopes for a shot at sledding glory.
In 7 News, the fight back begins. Major youth crime announcement. Urgent health warning on a crippling mosquito-borne disease. Why your grocery bills could soon start falling. And what a show. Half-time at the Super Bowl, we have exclusive access.
Jackpot, Kansas City!
7 News tonight.
A police officer is back at work today after the car he was in was rammed by a stolen vehicle. New South Wales Police has been following the Land Rover north towards the Gold Coast. Queensland Police then spotted it on the M1 at Currumbin, where the driver reversed at speed, ramming into the highway patrol car.
Unfortunately, that male was able to slip the cordon, and we'll rely on CCTV footage and forensics down the track to see if we can identify who he is.
The car had been stolen from Burleigh Heads last week. Well, Australia has a reading problem, with 1 in 3 children unable to read proficiently. That's the conclusion of a new report by the Grattan Institute. And joining me now is Amy Haywood, who's the Education Deputy Program Director. Amy, good afternoon to you. Now, this report finds we're not teaching children to read well enough. What is well enough, and what are we doing wrong?
Thanks so much, Katrina. It's great to be here and to talk about this important issue. As you said up front, we do know those statistics are quite shocking. About 1 in 3 Queensland students aren't reading at the proficiency level in NAPLAN. And we think that systems have not been clear with teachers about what exactly is expected, what best practice reading instruction looks like all through school. So there has been some disagreement about, over decades, what actually this should look like, but now the evidence is settled. We know that a structured literacy approach is the best approach because it's going to help the most amount of students learn to read well. So what that includes is, in the early years, making sure we're teaching students to read and decode really fluently. That means that they're very capable at making those letter-sound associations with words. So, for instance, a simple word like cat, they might start with the sound t to spell out cat, and the letters C-A-T to go with that. So we build those letter sound associations for the simple and then the far more complex words like sausage. It's really important that all students master that, and then they can actually start reading unfamiliar words. Alongside that, we also need to make sure that we're building up students' background knowledge and explicitly teaching them new words and vocabulary, and then also monitoring students so that if they're falling behind, we catch them up as soon as possible. So we know that's what great and excellent best practice looks like in the classroom. Our issue is scaling it and making sure that's happening in every classroom across Queensland.
Amy Haywood, thank you so much for joining us on the 4pm News.
Thank you.
Well, Donald Trump is causing alarm amongst America's NATO allies after suggesting the US might not come to their aid if attacked by Russia. The Republican presidential candidate told a rally he'd warned an unnamed big country they must spend more on defence.
No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
The White House described the statement as appalling and unhinged. Under the NATO agreement, any attack on any member is an attack on all members. They came in all shapes and sizes with one goal: to win the crown for Best Homemade Sled. Competitors took to a ramp in Russia, racing in everything from a giant swan to 2 huge chickens, even a hut. 2 teams took out the top prize, worth $500 Australian, the Town Musicians of Bremen and the White Angels of War. King Charles makes his first public outing since his cancer diagnosis, the latest on his condition after the break. And in sport, he's done it again. Magic Maxwell saves the day in Adelaide.
In 7 News, the streets paved with gold for parking inspectors, racking up huge fines for drivers.
I've been caught a couple of times myself. That's why I take the train now.
From north to south, Brisbane, Ipswich, the Gold Coast, we list the streets to steer clear of to avoid getting stung. 7 News, tonight at 6.
King Charles has stepped down in public for the first time since his shock cancer diagnosis was announced. But it's likely to be a rare appearance as Prince William prepares to take on more of his father's royal duties. Europe correspondent Ashley Mullaney reports.
The King looked in good spirits today, smiling and waving at the small crowd that gathered at Sandringham as he attended a Sunday church service. This is the first time we have seen King Charles since his shock cancer diagnosis last week. In a statement overnight, he expressed his heartfelt thanks to the nation after going public with his very private health battles.
We know that when he announced his original visit to hospital, lots of people went off to get checked to see how they were getting along. And I think that he's wanting to use his sad setback, if you like, for the general good, to help other people. I think that's really the essence of his message.
There are big questions now about the engagements in the King's diary in the weeks and months ahead. For the foreseeable future, we won't be seeing him at public events. The expectation is that Prince William will be stepping up to fulfil some of his father's duties. Of course, he is under enormous pressure on the home front too, with wife Catherine still recovering from major abdominal surgery. The palace says King Charles will be back in London at some point this week to undergo medical treatment and also hold meetings. Expected to be his weekly audience with British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, something he hopes to continue doing face to face.
Let's have a quick look at today's sport now. Good afternoon, Webcke.
Thanks, Katrina. How are you? As you've seen, the Broncos' trip to Vegas has been placed in jeopardy this afternoon. Skipper Adam Reynolds and Pat Carrigan are facing an investigation from the NRL's Integrity Unit after vision emerged of the pair involved in a heated scuffle in Fortitude Valley. The club was made aware of the incident last night. Another virtuoso performance from Glenn Maxwell powered Australia to a series-clinching 34-run win over the West Indies in the second T20. The Big Show smashed an undefeated 120 off just 55 balls at Adelaide Oval, equalling Rohit Sharma's record of 5 international T20 centuries. Australia's 4 for 241 is the biggest ever on home soil.
Smashed into the gap for Maxwell. Lifts his arm up. A brilliant 100 for Maxwell, the magician.
There was late controversy. The Aussies denied a run-out because umpire Gerard Aboud said he didn't hear an appeal, but it had no bearing on the results. NFL superstar Patrick Mahomes says the Kansas City Chiefs can keep dominating for many years to come. As you saw earlier, Mahomes led the Chiefs to a gripping overtime victory over Aussie punter Mitch Wisniewski's San Francisco 49ers in Super Bowl 58 at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. The 49ers struck first in overtime, taking the lead with a field goal, but Mahomes had the final say, getting the Chiefs home 25-22.
It's there! Hardman! Jackpot! Kansas City!
It's Kansas City's third Super Bowl in the last 5 seasons. Mahomes winning his third MVP award.
Is it a dynasty now?
Yeah, it's the start of one. We're not done. I know we're going to celebrate tonight, celebrate the Pride Wednesday, Kansas City, but we're not done. We've got a young team. We'll keep this thing going.
The Chiefs are the first team to win back-to-back Super Bowls since Tom Brady's New England Patriots in 2005. Katrina, the celebrations are going to be big, I would say.
Oh, I think so.
Plenty more news at 6.
Thanks, Webby. Well, time to see what's coming up in 7 News at 6 and our Gold Coast Bulletin now. Max and Amanda are here. Good afternoon, guys. Now, Max, the Police Commissioner has addressed State Cabinet on the youth crime crisis.
Hello, Katrina. Yes, it's not unusual. It is unusual, but it's not unheard of. The tools she says she needs to get on top of the problem and the government's response. But will it be enough? Also, a Navy veteran's explosive claims about her treatment by superiors and why she claims she's been silenced. That's only on 7 News. And the Brisbane streets you may want to avoid if you're worried about copping a parking fine.
Yes, that's very unwelcome. And Amanda, a truckie has fronted court on a high-range drink driving charge.
Katrina, he was picked up passed out next to his rig by the side of the road. Today, though, he took the court by surprise. We'll tell you how. Also, the roads are open and the wine is flowing. The new Tambourine tourism campaign, its twist on the classic Where the Bloody Hell Are You? And a sneak peek at the new Wizard of Oz attractions at Movie World. Katrina, they're conjuring up some magic theme park magic.
That looks like fun. Thank you, Amanda. And thank you, Max. Our Gold Coast viewers are off to the chase now. Then you can join Amanda and Steve for your local news at 5:30. And of course, Sharon and Max at 6 o'clock. For the rest of the state, a man shot by police at a rural Queensland motel. We have a live update with the latest on that developing story next. Cases of Ross River virus sparking health concerns, the urgent warning to Queenslanders. And later, after the weather, all the glitz and glamour from the Gold Coast's Hollywood weekend, the ACTA Awards wraps up.
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Katrina Blowers.
Good afternoon. Making headlines this Monday, police have shot and killed a man they say confronted them with a gun during an arrest south of Webcke. We'll have the latest on this story coming up soon. Supermarket giant Coles is reportedly agitating for its suppliers to cut prices as 3 separate inquiries begin into the cost of groceries. Coles argues cheaper fuel and freight costs give suppliers room to lower their wholesale prices. Celebrations are still going for fans of American football and Taylor Swift after a Super Bowl classic. The pop superstar was in the stands as the Kansas City Chiefs went back-to-back with a victory in overtime. Back to our developing story now, and police have shot dead a wanted man at a hotel south of Webcke. Garth Burley, police say the victim pulled a gun.
Katrina, it's alleged he did, leaving officers with no option but to shoot the 39-year-old man from New South Wales. Police arrived at a hotel in Ilbilby around 10:30 this morning, conducting what they call a targeted operation. As officers approached the wanted man in his car, it's then where they say he produced the firearm. It's understood a number of shots were fired, and despite the man giving the man CPR, he died at the scene.
A really critical incident that really impacts everyone involved, the first responders, the medical assistance that comes, and naturally this will be a really difficult day for the family of the man involved.
Another man who was with the victim is being questioned by police as well. Independent investigators will now travel to the remote crime scene. Katrina, the actions of police now under an ethical standards investigation.
Garth Burley, thank you. Well, we're being warned to expect a significant outbreak in Ross River virus. I'm joined now by Bianca Stone. Bianca, thousands of people are infected.
Katrina, that is the warning from Queensland's Chief Health Officer. Mosquitoes infected with Ross River virus have been detected at 31 sites from Webcke to the Gold Coast. Now, the experts say that's significant. It's more locations than during the last epidemic in 2019. Typically, there's a major outbreak every 3 to 4 years, and right now conditions are perfect for mozzies.
This leads us to predict that
Queenslanders, significant numbers of Queenslanders, will be infected with the virus in the coming weeks. It is possible that even thousands of Queenslanders could be infected.
Ross River virus isn't fatal but is debilitating and can last for months. Symptoms include fever, chills, body aches and pains, along with severe fatigue. Now, there's no vaccine or specific treatment. It's all about prevention. Councils across Queensland have all stepped up spraying. We were out there with them today in Brisbane, but everyone can play a part to protect against mozzies, including in your own backyard. And Katrina will have more on this story, including those specific areas where they've been detected, in the news at 6.
Great info. Thank you, Bianca. 7 teenagers have been arrested after allegedly ramming a police car before leading officers on a wild chase in a stolen luxury car. 4 of the teens were on bail for similar offences. Andrew Denny has the details.
Well, behind me is the bridge to St Hubert's Island here on the Central Coast. It's the only road in and out of here and the perfect place for police to stop a group of car thieves early this morning, or so they thought. Security cameras capturing the moments a police blockade is rammed by a convoy of stolen luxury cars driven by teenagers. This was the start of a chase that stretched almost 100 kilometres.
They pursued that vehicle at speeds of up to 160 kilometres an hour before police were able to deploy road spikes successfully at West Gosford. It travelled down the freeway at speeds under the posted limit, mainly due to the damage to the tyres.
The pursuit ended in the Sydney suburb of Toongabbie around 4 a.m, with around a dozen police cars stopping a stolen Mercedes, arresting 5 teenagers. It started an hour and a half earlier when neighbours of a St Hubert's Island family raised the alarm over a stolen BMW. The group of 8 car thieves trapped by police blocking the bridge before they forced their way through.
There was about 3 or 4 times they raced up and down the island here. Excessive speed.
6 boys aged between 15 and 17 and a girl aged 17 have now been arrested and are in the process of being charged. Police believe there is another boy outstanding. They say a number of them were already on bail for similar car theft offences.
It is no secret that youth crime is on the rise, and what is very worrying is the level of violence associated with those crimes.
Now we'll bring you more on how this dramatic chase unfolded this morning tonight on 7 News from 6 o'clock.
A man accused of slashing a police officer with a box cutter as he tried to resist arrest in Carroll Park has been refused bail in court today. Police say Lucas Dynova was in the passenger seat of a car being driven by his partner when officers tried to intercept them yesterday morning. After tyre spikes were deployed, the 31-year-old is accused of jumping out and slashing the arm of an officer who then required surgery for a severed artery. New South Wales Treasurer Daniel Webcke has had a claim for millions of dollars in unpaid COVID expenses rejected by his Queensland counterpart. He wrote to Cameron Dick with claims New South Wales is owed $105 million to cover the cost of Queenslanders staying in hotel quarantine in Sydney. New South Wales took in the bulk of returning Australians who stayed in hotel quarantine. There's fresh insight into a carbon monoxide poisoning scare that put almost 50 people in hospital. Athletes were among those overcome by fumes at an ice hockey venue in Adelaide, as Andrea Nichols reports.
The ice arena has been reassuring skaters today it's safe to return to the ice, saying the machine responsible for the carbon monoxide leak has been sidelined.
We do everything we can to make it safe. The MFS wouldn't have released the building back to us unless it was safe.
If they say it's safe, I believe it's safe. But some skaters have been taking their own precautions.
I'm going to wear a mask while I'm in there. I'm going to try not to touch things I don't have to necessarily touch.
Many of the 49 people poisoned were athletes in the Women's Ice Hockey League game between the Adelaide Rush and Melbourne Ice on Saturday afternoon. Among the patients, Victorian player and partner of the AFL's Marcus Bontempelli, Neela Brenning. In a statement, the Adelaide Rush Hockey Club said the common goal's to play ice hockey at the highest level in a safe way and to gain exposure. Unfortunately, this weekend we gained more than we planned for. Both the Ice Arena and Safe Work SA are investigating what happened, but it's been revealed the alarm was raised about the ice resurfacing machine responsible last week. The manager, who only took over operations in November, says it was supposed to be serviced today, too late for Saturday night's incident.
Like any other piece of machinery, they wear out.
It's their responsibility to make sure it's safe and they comply with all the regulations.
The Premier's ruled out any taxpayer help. The venue says it's installed 8 carbon monoxide alarms to avoid a repeat.
A thief with a sweet tooth has been caught on camera stealing a tray of donuts from a Melbourne bakery. He was in and out of the Richmond store in less than 10 seconds, making off with 11 treats and the serving tongs. Let's take a check on finance now. And there was a dip for the Aussie market today. Here's Laura Bezerati from CommSec.
Good afternoon, that's right. The Aussie market did end lower by roughly 30 points or 0.4%, snapping a 3-day winning streak. We saw 6 of the 11 sectors pushing higher, but the broad declines were primarily driven by a 5% fall in our third largest stock, CSL. That's after announcing that its biggest ever clinical trial didn't reach the desired results. CSL is developing a drug to reduce the chance of patients experiencing a second heart attack. So this setback in their trials has certainly not been well received by its shareholders today, given that they were high hopes for this treatment. This also comes ahead of CSL's latest profit results being released on Tuesday. Elsewhere, JB Hi-Fi shares hit a record high despite posting softer profits and sales over the past 6 months. This is because analysts had forecast its results to be worse as consumers cut back on spending. But retailers in general have been resilient based on results from a number of retail companies over the past week or so. Finally, the Aussie dollar currently buys 65.1 US cents. Have a lovely night.
Calls to scour Southeast rentals for traces of a dangerous drug, the hidden risks that could be lurking in plain sight. That's next. And what police uncovered in a safety crackdown on Southeast railways.
In 7 News, the streets paved with gold for parking inspectors, raking up huge fines for drivers.
I've been caught a couple of times myself. That's why I take the train now.
From north to south, Brisbane, Ipswich, the Gold Coast, we list the streets to steer clear of to avoid getting stung. 7 News, tonight at 6.
Police have charged almost 40 people in a safety crackdown across the Southeast rail network. Officers uncovered 5 weapons, including knives, and drugs, including methamphetamine and cannabis, during the single-day blitz. Police also issued 37 traffic fines following more than 800 roadside breath tests and 11 drug tests near train lines. One of the country's biggest real estate agencies is calling for law reform in Queensland, requiring mandatory drug testing of rental properties. But the Real Estate Institute doesn't support a change. Anna McGraw spoke with the CEO today to find out why.
Good afternoon. Well, real estate agents across Queensland are calling for mandatory drug testing in rental properties, reporting a spike in drug-related activity at tenanted properties. Now, this afternoon, I'm joined by Antonia Mercarella from the REIQ. Thank you so much for your time. What would it take to have legislation like this in Queensland?
Well, look, what I would say is we know that there are some very serious risks associated with drug labs in properties, and we would be supportive of testing for those properties. But what we would say is before we would look at supporting mandatory testing, we would say, first of all, there needs to be an acceptable test that is considered reliable. We would need to determine what the right safety levels look like. And, of course, we also need to think about affordability.
Would it be something that could be beneficial to not only tenants coming into those properties, but also the landlords who own these properties?
Well, of course. I think from a safety perspective, we all deserve to live in a home that is safe. We know that the chemical residue left behind from a meth lab can cause very serious health risks and, of course, even fatalities in some cases. But from a property owner's perspective, it can be very expensive.
Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. In the news at 6 o'clock, we'll have more information on this growing debate here in Queensland.
In breaking news, the Israeli military says it's rescued 2 hostages taken by Hamas in October. The men, aged 60 and 70, were found in Rafah in Gaza's south and flown to an Israeli hospital.
They were received in our ER
and initial examination were conducted by our ER staff, and they are in a stable condition.
The army says several Palestinians were killed in the operation. They're only the second and third people to be safely rescued from Hamas. A crowd of Chinese New Year's revellers have attacked a self-driving taxi in San Francisco. The vehicle was graffitied and had its windows broken before someone threw a lit firework in, setting the car on fire. No one was in the vehicle at the time. It's not known what triggered the attack, although last week a cyclist suffered minor injuries after being hit by one of the company's cars. You're watching 7's Afternoon News. Still to come, the Gold Coast's glittering future after a weekend fit for Hollywood. And some showers and sunny breaks today. This is a look at Brisbane right now. It is 26 degrees. Tony has all the weather details next.
In 7 News, the fight back begins. Major youth crime announcement. Urgent health warning on a crippling mosquito-borne disease. Why your grocery bills could soon start falling. And what a show. Half-time at the Super Bowl, we have exclusive access.
Jackpot, Kansas City!
7 News tonight.
Good afternoon, you're watching 7 News. Checking the weather now, and we've seen a mixed bag today. This shot over Brisbane a short time ago, blue sky in the distance and rain falling near and just on the south side of the city. Across Queensland today, we've seen onshore winds bringing showers to the coast, the heaviest falls just north of Bundaberg. Storms well inland, but no warnings have been issued. Now onto the forecast chart. The inland storms and coastal showers remain, maybe easing back a little bit in the southeast as we're actually on the axis of this ridge of high pressure and the winds ease back slightly. But we do need to watch the monsoon trough and low up in the north for further development later in the week. There is a moderate chance we could see a cyclone up in the Gulf around Thursday or Friday. If you're headed interstate tomorrow, a hot one in Melbourne, up to 37 degrees with storms, strong winds and nasty fire conditions across Victoria. Even Hobart should crack the 30-degree mark before a cooler change into the evening. Back to northern Queensland, showers most frequent around the central coast, 30 the top for Mackay, while storms build around Weipa and Mount Isa as that monsoonal weather really starts to increase. Over southern districts, storms inland starting to link up with those showers on the coast and ranges. The only real spot to miss out is likely to be western parts of the Darling Downs. Roma tracking for 31 degrees. Across the southeast, similar to today, but I think the showers will be slightly less frequent. A couple of sunny breaks in there yet again. 22 overnight, up to 29 degrees in Brisbane. Logan and Bedesert should nudge up around 30 degrees. Then what can we expect for the rest of the week? Katrina, I'll have the full forecast coming up at 6.
Thank you, Tony. Well, the biggest names in Hollywood have praised the Gold Coast for its mega movie industry. Packing up is continuing following the ACTA Awards, which will return to Queensland next year.
The credits are rolling on a film festival like no other. Australia's version of the Oscars has Gold Coast flair, bringing big names here. Rebel Wilson, Kate Blanchett, Margot Robbie returned home, plus directors who had this to say about our city.
My second time working here, remarkable people, front of the camera, behind the camera, and it was a director's joy.
The event, much more than just awards, workshops held for the next generation with stars from Elvis and Bluey.
Grow the industry here in the Queensland right from the roots.
And opportunities for everyone.
Roles like locations manager, first assistant camera, gaffers, grips.
A special effects makeup masterclass too, run by Emmy Award winner Chad Atkinson. He's worked on movies like Narnia and The Hobbit.
Gluing around the edges, that's the key to it all.
And a push for Goldiewood to grow.
It just seems logical that the film business would just continue to expand out here. It just seems like a natural home for it.
An expansion that is underway.
We're in the final stage of tendering for the studio site up in Yatala, a capability of putting another 30 sound studio.
The actors will be held here for the next 2 years, bolstering our blockbuster status. On the Gold Coast, Amanda Abate, 7 News.
Humans who feel hot today should spare a thought for a zoo favourite in Melbourne, forced to endure the scorching temperatures while wearing a thick fur coat. Keepers treated snow leopard Miska to a refreshing ice cream made with lactose-free milk, of course. The big cat also has a misting system and an air-conditioned den to recreate conditions more like their mountainous habitat in the wild. So beautiful. That is Queensland's 4 p.m. news for this Monday. Stay with us now for The Chase and then 7 News at 6. I'm Katrina Blowers and I'll see you tomorrow.